We're back on the program. I'm David Gregory. Welcome. A lot of developments today from the future Obama administration. The big news, former Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle has been tapped to lead the Health and Human Services Department administration. He's going to deal, of course, with health policies, a key advisor to President-elect Obama, and has been throughout the campaign. Also today, NBC News has confirmed that Peter Orszag will be the new director for the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget. It's the first major economic post to be filled in the Obama administration, and it comes on a day when the stock market took another serious hit, the Dow dropping more than 420 points to close below 8,000. Joining me now is Leon Panetta, former OMB director, chief of staff for President Clinton. He also was a member of the Iraq Study Group, so he's got a view of the world. But most importantly, he is the director of the Panetta Institute, which keeps him busy in his home area, a beautiful part of the world. Leon, it's good to have you here.
Nice to be here, David.
We talk about a key economic posting in this new Obama administration, the Dow doing what it's doing, the financial industry in such distress, and the prospect of an auto bailout. As Obama puts together this economic team, what is incumbent upon him now as he inherits not only huge problems, but an infrastructure for dealing with the crisis that's already in motion? This bailout plan. It's really tough, and even tougher than you all dealt with in '92.
No, without question. I was thinking he's going to walk into the Oval Office, and he's going to face the largest deficit in the history of the country. It'll be about $1 trillion. Face an economy in recession, and he's going to face the responsibility for the $700 billion bailout package and running the banks. So it's an unprecedented challenge that's going to face him. For that reason, he's got to put his economic team in place early. I'm glad to see that Pete Orszag was nominated as director of OMB. He's a good man, ran CBO up on Capitol Hill, Congressional Budget Office, and I think he'll be good at that job. He's got to put the rest of his economic team in place so that they can make the transition, because they're going to have to go into Treasury. They're going to have to find out what's going on with the $700 billion. They're going to have to be able to hit the ground running. In addition to that, it's clear right now, with Congress not passing any kind of stimulus, at least it doesn't look like that's going to happen, that President of the United States is one of his first responsibilities will be to put in place an economic stimulus.
How does it reorient his priorities in the first 100 days and even the first year? You made the comment recently in print somewhere that you come in there, you've made a lot of promises, but this thing is going to wash over you, this crisis that is getting worse by the day.
Well, I don't think there's any question that as a result of what he's facing, he's going to have to set some priorities. He's not going to be able to meet all of the promises that were made in the campaign. He might somewhere down the road, but immediately I think he's going to have to set some priorities as to what's most important. Because when you're facing this level of debt, when you're facing this kind of crisis in the economy, you just have to face first things first. And the first thing you have to do is try to get the economy back on the right track.
Let me ask you about leadership and putting together a team, because I mentioned you also studied what went wrong in not finding WMD in Iraq with your study in the Iraq Study Group. The prospect of Hillary Clinton at the State Department, the building of a national security team. What does Obama have to be careful about here?
I think, presidents first and foremost have to focus on qualifications and experience and people that can do the job. That's number one. You want people that understand that job and that know how to handle it. I think that's important. You also want people at the table who are going to bring their views to the table. I mean, you don't want to have just a bunch of yes people around you. You want to have people in a room who are telling you honestly what they believe. Once the president makes the decision, they then have to salute and carry out that decision. Those are the kinds of people that you want. Basically, what you want are team players. Yes, they present their views. Yes, they may have their differences. But in the end, when the President of the United States makes a decision, they follow through.
Are you persuaded that Hillary Clinton's the right choice?
There's no question in my mind that she's got the experience and the qualifications and the discipline, and someone who I think could really effectively represent the United States abroad in terms of our State Department. I think she'd be an outstanding choice if he decides to do that.
The auto bailout is something that it looks like it's failing on Capitol Hill, even though we've had these hearings this week. And yet the President-elect says this is an industry that can fail. So just add that on top of his financial worries. How do you go about tackling this problem?
David, I think one of the mistakes that's been made with this $700 billion rescue plan is that there are absolutely no standards or guidelines as to how this is going to be applied. It creates some very dangerous precedents because the fact is, once you've given this kind of money out to the banks, once you've bailed out AIG and others, then you're going to have a whole series of others that are going to line up and say, what about us? Where are the standards? Where are the guidelines? It can't just rest with the Secretary of Treasury. What they should be putting in place, and it's obviously not going to happen in this administration, but what they should be putting in place is some kind of RTC board, some kind of board that was similar to what was done with SNL that can establish some standards and guidelines and can handle these kinds of requests as they come in. Otherwise, politically, this is going to be a disaster because everybody's going to line up for help.
Do you think that the automakers have to be bailed out at this stage because of the hit they've taken from the economy, from the failure of the banks?
There's no question that it's a huge industry. It's 3 million jobs. I do think that you ought to take a serious look at what kind of help ought to be provided to the auto industry. But there's no question in my mind that you better impose some very clear conditions that says to them, if you're going to get this kind of money, then you better come into the 21st century and meet some responsibilities with regards to fuel efficiency.
You're a guy who knows how to balance budgets and to make presidents pay attention to. You mentioned $1 trillion deficit that President Obama is going to face. Does he need to worry about that in the first year, or can he afford to worry about it when an economy is in need of so much stimulus?
He has to worry about it, David. The last thing that we want are 4 more years of what we've had the last 8 years, which is largely borrow and spend. George Bush never really got serious about dealing with the deficit at all, which is a tragedy. And now we've got this huge debt. So I realize in the short term, all of us recognize that in the short term in dealing with the economy and the problems that we're facing, the deficit's going to have to go up. But at some point, he's got to fashion a budget that sets a 4 or 5 year track that returns us to some kind of fiscal discipline. I hope he not only looks at the short term, but that he also focuses on that long term.
All right, Leon Panetta, thank you very much for being here.
Nice to be with you, David.
Nice.